Hello everyone, welcome to our video Discovering Canada, a journey through Canadian history. Today, we're going on an exciting journey through the history of Canada. Ready to dive into some cool stories and meet amazing people? Let's get started. Long before Canada became a country, it was home to many diverse Indigenous peoples. The First Nations, Métis, and Inuit have lived here for thousands of years. They had their own unique cultures, languages, and ways of life. Let's take a peek at their incredible history. Thousands of years ago, during the last ice age, a land bridge called Beringia connected Asia to North America. Early peoples crossed this land bridge from Asia into what we now call Canada. Over time, these groups spread out across the continent, each adapting to their unique environments. Now, let's fast forward to the 1500s. European explorers like Jacques Cartier and Samuel de Champlain set sail across the Atlantic Ocean to discover new lands. They arrived in what we now call Canada and began to meet and trade with the Indigenous peoples. However, things weren't always as peaceful as they seemed. The French weren't the only ones interested in Canada. The English and Dutch also wanted to be part of the action. Sometimes this led to fights and competition over land and resources. It was like a big game of tug-of-war, with different countries trying to grab their share. By the 1700s, Canada was buzzing with activity. The French and the British were the big players, each with their own colonies and ambitions. It was like a huge game of who can control more land. And this competition was about to get even more intense. The 7 Years' War, which happened from 1756 to 1763, was one of the first big global wars. It wasn't just fought in one place, it spread across Europe, India, America, and the oceans. In North America, Britain and France were fighting over who would control the land. In the US, this war is known as the French and Indian War. At the start, the French, with help from Canadian soldiers and Indigenous allies, won several battles and took over some British forts. But in 1758, things started to change. The British captured important places like Louisbourg, Quebec City in 1759, and Montreal in 1760. By the end of the war, the Treaty of Paris in 1763 made it official. France gave up control of Canada to Britain. So, Canada was now officially a British colony, and many French settlers stayed behind under British rule. In the early 1800s, Canada was starting to look a bit different. It was still a British colony, but more and more people were moving in, and new places were being explored and settled. One major event was the War of 1812, which took place from 1812 to 1815. This was a conflict between the United States and Britain. Canada, as part of the British Empire, was involved in the war. The fighting was intense, but Canadian soldiers and their allies, including Indigenous groups, defended their land successfully. Key battles included the Battle of Queenston Heights and the Battle of York. After the war, Canada saw a lot of changes. Settlers were moving west, building new communities and expanding the land. The building of canals, like the Rideau Canal, helped connect different parts of Canada and made it easier to travel and trade. In the early 19th century, a major event was the outbreak of World War I. The war began in 1914, after Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria was assassinated. The major powers divided into two groups: the Triple Alliance, which included Germany, Italy, and Austria-Hungary, and the Triple Entente, which included Russia, England, and France. Canada, being part of the British Empire, was automatically involved in the war. The conflict was marked by brutal trench warfare and new weapons like submarines, poison gas, warplanes, and tanks, leading to heavy casualties. The war ended in 1918 with an armistice, and the Treaty of Versailles in 1919 officially ended the war. The treaty imposed harsh penalties on Germany and redrew national borders, which had lasting effects on global politics and contributed to the conditions that led to World War II. In the 1920s, Canada went through a lively change. Cities were bustling with new cars, jazz music, and a sense of excitement after World War I. The prairies did well because wheat prices were high, making farming important. Canadian artists like the Group of Seven created beautiful paintings that helped show what makes Canada unique. Overall, it was a time of recovery and joy as people rebuilt their lives and enjoyed the new opportunities around them. In the 1930s, Canada was hit hard by the Great Depression, making it very difficult for people to earn money. Many struggled so much that they had to sell their belongings just to get by. Cities and farms faced tough times, and families found it hard to make ends meet. Despite the challenges, Canadians showed great resilience, coming together to support each other. The government began introducing programs and policies to provide relief, create jobs, and boost the economy during this challenging time. However, the Great Depression ended with the start of World War II, as the demand for soldiers, factory workers, and other roles helped revive the economy. Canada entered World War II in 1939, right alongside Britain and France. Our troops fought bravely in major battles, including the pivotal D-Day landings in Normandy in 1944, where Canadian soldiers landed on Juno Beach. Canadians also played key roles in the Battle of the Atlantic, protecting supply routes from German U-boats, and in the Italian campaign, where they fought in Sicily and Italy. Back home, Canada's factories and farms supported the war effort, producing weapons and supplies. By the end of the war in 1945, Canada had made a significant impact, showcasing bravery and dedication. World War II ended in 1945 with the unconditional surrender of both Germany and Japan. In Europe, the war concluded with Germany's surrender on May 8, 1945, known as VE Day, after the Allies' successful invasion and defeat of German forces. In the Pacific, the war ended on September 2, 1945, following Japan's surrender after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This effectively marked the end of the conflict and led to the beginning of a new era of reconstruction and international relations. After World War II, Canada changed a lot. The country grew and welcomed many new immigrants, making us more diverse and multicultural. In the 1960s, Canada introduced universal health care, which meant everyone could see a doctor without worrying about the cost. During this time, Quebec went through a tough time known as the Quiet Revolution, where people started to demand more rights for French speakers and their culture. In 1982, we added the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to our Constitution, which protects everyone's rights in Canada. As we entered the 21st century, Canada began focusing more on important issues like climate change and the rights of Indigenous peoples. Today, we still face challenges, like making sure everyone is treated equally and protecting our environment. Canada's history since World War II shows how we can grow together and work towards a better future for everyone.